The Sports Source is brought to you by Fast Frame, with exciting Vol sports prints now available.
You are watching East Tennessee's first and only year-round sports talk show on television. This is The Sports Source with your host, John Pennington.
Good Sunday and welcome into the Sports Source. Appreciate you being with us today as we race toward our 14th football season here on the Sports Source, which is hard in itself to believe. Thanks for allowing us into your home that many times. We're going to count down and start looking at Tennessee's roster for the 2016 season. So today is our roster preview show. Everything from the top 10 players on the team to who's going to be the breakout performer, who's going to be the most important newcomer, who aren't we sold on yet? All that comes up today in a good show. We start it, first segment, brought to you by our friends at Tenova Healthcare. And men out there, if you are faced with prostate cancer, and that's going to be about 1 in 6 of you, make your first call to Tenova's Men's Health Center of Excellence. They answer all of your questions. They discuss all of the treatment options available to you, and they put a grade A team right at your service. I used Tenova when I battled cancer, and I can tell you I have nothing but good things to say about them. I think you'd be doing yourself a smart move by giving them a shout right off the bat, Tenova and their Men's Health Center of Excellence. All right, I want to welcome in the panel for today. We have Mr. Bob Hodge. We have then our radio row right here, Jimmy Himes, Russell Smith, Vince Ferrara. Guys, thank you one and all for being here. As I said, this is our roster preview show. What we did this week is I sent everyone a ballot. Everyone was able to put in their own 1 through 10 of the best players on the team. Whoever was ranked number 1, you get 1 point when I tallied everything up and combined the answers, so the lower score, the better. Anybody who did not wind up on someone's list got a 15, so it was kind of a penalty. So if all it took was one guy to really nuke somebody, and I know that somebody got nuked in this thing, but we do have some interesting answers. I want to start, normally in a 1 to 10 countdown, you'd start with number 10, but we had a tie for number 9. So we start our 1 to 10 countdown with number 9, JaJuan Jennings. Wide receiver, just a sophomore. Bob Hodge, you had him on your list. I'm going to let you start. JaJuan Jennings, why'd you put him in the top 10?
I think because a little bit of it is based on what may be coming down the road. But I think if you look at him, he's probably one of the best athletes on the team, overall best athlete. Good hands, good speed, a very fiery, tough competitor. He did a lot for Tennessee last year on special teams when he didn't catch as many passes you'd like to see. And I just think he's also a guy that you could move around. You could play him outside. You could play him in the slot. And if you had to, in an emergency situation, you could probably put him on defense.
There have been people who've said he should go to defense already. But I agree with you. I think Jennings should be in that top 10. I had him in mine. I think overall he's someone that brings a lot of different talents to the table. And you mentioned fiery. You got a little fiery with the South Carolina players last year. You go on. When we were putting the graphics together last night, and by we I mean me, if you look up photos for JaJuan Jennings, there are several of him kind of jawing with the South Carolina players last year. All right, next up, we have the other tie for number 9. He tied in points. Ethan Wolfe, tight end, junior. And one thing, notice how many sophomores and juniors are on this list. I mean, it's not like you're chock full of seniors here still. Jimmy, I'm going to let you talk about Ethan Wolfe. You had him on your list. Tell me why you put him in your top 10.
I think he's a really good combination tight end. A lot of tight ends nowadays are either good blockers or they're good pass receivers. I think he can do both. And I think he's a guy that's going to be able to play in the NFL. I think he's got that kind of ability. And I think he'll continue to get better. And I actually think that you may see him be a little bit more productive as a receiver in the NFL because I don't think that Tennessee throws it that much to the tight end. But I do think as a combo tight end, he's going to be coveted by some NFL teams. And I just think he's got a little bit of a rare blend of the ability to block and to catch at that position.
And the interesting thing is so many people saying, well, you got to give him more touches. Got to get him more touches. And we've said this before on the show. There are only so many touches to go around. You've got so many playmakers in terms of Kamara and Hurd. You don't want to take the ball out of their hands. You don't want to take carries away from Dobbs when you can mix him in. So it's tough to get all these guys the ball. I think you're right about Ethan Wolfe, though. He certainly might have more pro potential than we ever see exhibited here, and which David Martin, we saw that, went to the pros and had a good career. All right, next up on our 1 to 10 countdown, we're down to number 8. Darren Kirkland Jr. I didn't put junior there because I thought it would look odd, junior linebacker, sophomore. But I'm going to get Vince. You had him very high on your list. Darren Kirkland Jr., what does you like about him?
Well, I like his instincts. I like his physicality, his burst. He certainly is an NFL type of talent. I think you're going to see him on the next level. And a lot of us felt like he should have played right out of the gate last year as a freshman. And he can cover so much ground, so physical. You hear about the photographic memory on him as well, the intelligence and all the physical tools. Seeing him in the spring, I don't know that I saw a player look better at his position and more sculpted than Darren Kirkland Jr. I think he's the full package, and I think he's going to fit in perfectly with Jalen Reeves-Maybin as that second linebacker, and we'll see him a lot in that 4-2-5. I think he's going to be all SEC multiple years at Tennessee.
Vince has claimed the word sculpted. No one else can use sculpted for the evening. All right, that's the bonus round. You just won. All right, number 7 on our list as we continue the countdown in this segment, Preston Williams. We mentioned JaJuan Jennings, and Bob, you mentioned that Jennings might have been more about the potential, you see, and a lot of these guys are potential. Preston Williams, certainly potential. He flashed part of it last year, Russell, but I think a lot of people are counting on him to use that size and that speed to make big things happen in the passing game.
Yeah, you remember last year he's coming off ACL surgery, so he's working himself back into shape a little bit. But I think it's interesting, 3 of the first 4 that we've mentioned here, pass catchers. And if you look at one of the complaints or criticisms people had of Tennessee last year, it was the passing game. So I think people are just looking, whether it's Jennings, Preston Williams, or somebody else, they're just looking for somebody to step up and be that go-to guy, a weapon. Can you, first of all, stay healthy, which has been a difficult thing for Tennessee wide receivers the past couple of seasons, but be consistent, make plays, and then be more consistent, make the spectacular play, be a playmaker, go out there and catch a hard-to-catch pass, break a tackle, score a touchdown.
Well, there's a receiver who hasn't been listed yet that is going to come up later in the show in one of our segments. I think it is interesting that we're going with guys who are, especially in Jennings and Williams, you're talking about 2 young guys out there, and you're betting more on the action to come rather than what you've seen so far. We got a couple minutes here. We timed that perfectly. So the question is, anything stand out in terms of guys that a little higher than you might have thought or a little lower than you might have thought? Again, it was 9 Jennings, 9 Wolfe, 8 Kirkland, 7 Williams. Anybody in here not have those guys ranked or too low?
I had Williams ranked, but like you said, after I did my ranking and turned it in, I thought, I'm really basing that on a very small body of work, and you are basing it more or less on what you expect from him. But last year when he did play, just the things that you could see from him, his speed and his body control, it just looked different than the other big-time receivers Tennessee's recruited that hadn't quite panned out, a la North, and to an extent, little Kroom, who they moved to tight end. He just looks like he has it.
Anything stand out to you guys about somebody should be higher, should be lower?
I had a couple of guys a little bit higher. Obviously, you mentioned Darren Kirkland Jr. I had him at 3, and then Preston Williams I had at 4. So I really buy into that upside that he has. And then the other 2 guys that we haven't mentioned, that you guys mentioned, and Ethan Wolfe, and then also who's the other guy? JaJuan Jennings. Yeah. Then those guys were just outside of the top 10. I think that speaks to the talent level on these teams. You can have guys of that caliber that you think highly of that aren't in your top 10.
We did the full list, and everyone got to put 10 people on there, and we wound up with 16 different players. So 16 different guys got in the mix somewhere or the other. Jimmy?
I was going to say that I left Jennings off, but that was an omission on my part. I should have had him in there. Okay. But I was confused because I was thinking talent versus fantasy team. Yeah, and I'm like, well, fantasy team, he's not going to catch that many passes. Yeah. So I shouldn't have left him off. He's a good athlete.
Very good. All right, guys, when we come back, we're going to run through, obviously it's a countdown, we're going to look at numbers 3, 8, and 7. No, we're going to look at 6, 5, and 4. But there's a surprise in there, one that I don't necessarily agree with. Come on back and see what it is and see if you agree with me that it's wrong on my show. How about this? Come on back on the Sports Source.